Hi friends, Mindy here. I have a process video for you. This is actually kind of part 2 of a series of creating this journal using some printables from the ArtfulEra Gallery and some of my own papers. So these vintage papers that I had in my stash, I am going to use alongside these beautiful printables, and then of course the scrapbook papers that I had already pulled out. So I'm just kind of flipping through these again. I will put my link for her shop down below. That will give you a discount in her shop as well, just in case you're interested. Again, these are called the Embroidery Texture pages, and they are just beautiful. There's so much detail in them. So the first thing that I need to do is create a template to sew my signatures in. So I'm going to be doing 2 signatures in this little journal, and my spine is just a little bit over 1.5 inches. And so I just cut a piece of paper, of scrap paper, to the size of the spine, and now I'm cutting the height of that, and then I will create my template so that I can kind of get everything lined up. So I'm taking this paper, I marked that this was the top because that always matters when you're sewing in multiple signatures. And then I'm just taking my little ruler, dividing this up so that I have semi-equal areas, and then drawing a couple of lines for my signature. And then to find the middle, I'm just very simply folding it in half. You can kind of see there. And so where those lines intersect is going to be the area that I punch the hole. And then for this 3-hole pamphlet stitch that I'll be using today, I want to come about 1 inch from the top and from the bottom. And then I will make those marks as well, draw that line across there. And then those intersections will just give me the area where I need to punch. And so this will be the template that I use for both the spine and for the signatures themselves. So you can see here, I have a little foam core thing underneath my my cover here. I've had this foam forever. You could do this into an old book or, old dictionary or something like that, and it would work just fine. And then I'm just punching through that template, and then now I can use this to punch the holes into my signatures. So I folded it along those lines just to make it a little bit easier. Now I'm using a book cradle here, but if you don't have that, you certainly could use an old book. You don't necessarily even need it. You just really want to make sure that you're getting your holes right along the, in the gutter of this signature. So once everything is kind of in my cradle there, I'm going to add these clips, and it's good if you can kind of put them on opposite sides. So like the top on one side and the bottom on the other side. It just kind of helps. And then make sure that your template is lined up for where the top of the page is. And then this is the first signature, so I'm using that first line and creating the holes. And then I'll do the same exact thing for this second set. Now, it's very easy for me to tell which signature is which because they look different, but if you're doing multiple signatures and they all kind of look the same, if you're doing like all white paper or whatever, you really want to make sure that you're keeping your signatures in order, because even though you're measuring, you can still just ever so slightly move one of those holes, and you really want to make sure that they all line up. So just try to make sure that to keep your signatures in order anytime that you are doing multiples especially. So I always like to start with the signature in the back. I just find this easiest for me personally to be able to kind of then clip it out of the way as I'm adding on new signatures. And I'm going to be using a 3-hole pamphlet stitch like I mentioned. So I'm going to be using some embroidery floss that just felt like the right thing to do. I have this kind of pale blue color, and you want like 2.5 to 3 lengths of the spine length for your thread. So you could use waxed linen thread or whatever you have. Like I said, I'm using the embroidery thread. It's a little bit tricky because it's a little bit more slippery than like a waxed linen would be, obviously, but you can also wax this if you chose to. I just didn't. But so I went from the middle of this signature to the outside of the cover, and now I'm coming back in the cover at that top hole. It doesn't matter if you go top or bottom, really. I just tend to always go top, I think, but it doesn't really matter. And then you're going to go all the way down now to the opposite hole. So down out the bottom and back out to the outside of the spine. And then you're going to go back in the spine at that middle hole. And it's really important, and it's kind of tricky, especially with embroidery floss, to make sure that you are not splitting all of those threads. There's several strands, especially in embroidery floss. And so if you kind of get in the middle of all of that, it makes it almost impossible to be able to tighten down your stitch, your, hole. So you're not going to be able to get that nice tight seam on there. And so I always check before I do anything and before I tie it off, just to make sure that my signature is sewn in really well. I check it a couple times, tighten it down, and then I will just add a square knot here. And then I'm actually doing 3 for good measure because of this thread is kind of slippery, like I said. And then I like to leave my tails long. You could cut them short, you could tuck them under and I will tie these in a bow for now. Sometimes I like to add things like hanging off beads or whatever. It just kind of depends, it's up to you. But another option is if you wanted those on the outside of your signature so that you could add things like beads or whatever, you just start from the opposite side. So you would start on the outside and work to the inside, if that makes sense. If you do like to add things, that's just a quick way to be able to do that. I am using my bone folder here because my signatures are a little fluffy, partially because of the papers that I'm using. So if you haven't seen this video, I will try to link the first one, but I used some scrapbooking paper and it was 12 by 12. And so I folded it in half because it's really thin paper and I just wanted it to be a little bit more substantial. So some of these pages are folded in half and I'm going to go through here now and kind of glue these, and some of them I am going to make pockets out of. Some of them I'm just going to glue along the edges and just to give it more stability, which is really why I did that. So this one I decided I'm going to make a top loading pocket, so I'm only gluing down along the right side. I'm using art glitter glue here. It just dries quickly and it's really grippy pretty quickly, so I don't have to wait on it. And then I'm using my really ginormous hole punch there just to kind of cut a thumb notch at the top, just to remind me that I have done that as a pocket, but also to make things easier to get in and out. So on this page, I decided to kind of do a folded back pocket, and then I'm doing a little bit of gluing over there on the right side, and then I'll glue this little flap down as well. And I can decorate over the top of that if I want to. You'll see in other pages, I actually tuck that the opposite direction. So this is the back side of that same paper. I decided to just go ahead and close this side up. I want it to seem like, they're individual. So I don't want to do the same thing to each exact paper, if that makes sense. You certainly could. It's just the way my weird brain works, I guess. And then some of these, especially these scrapbook papers, coming along the bottom and just kind of using my bone folder, making sure that that crease is really good. So here's one where I'm going to start by folding it this way just so I get the right kind of angle, and then I will fold it back in on itself. And then I'm going to glue this down on the edge here. And this also gives me a little bit of kind of wiggle room there. If I want to add paper behind that, I can certainly do that as well. So now I'm back to this green paper and I'm trying to decide, I want everything to kind of look a little bit different. And so it's part of the thing that I love, I guess, most about junk journals is being able to really have elements that are interactive and kind of unexpected. And so I decided on this one, I'm going to do a little tuck spot over here on the side. So I'll make a journaling card and tuck that in there. I like all of the interactive aspects of it. So I really like all the fun pockets and everything. And this is the first time I think that I've really done a journal where I've used old scrapbook paper in this way. So this has actually been fun and also a little bit challenging because it's not double-sided, because it's just white on the back. So that's going to present some challenges for mostly just for my brain, because I feel like there needs to be something there and it's not coffee dyed or whatever. So certainly you could do that as well, or use double-sided paper, but I was just using the paper that I had that really kind of coordinated with these beautiful printables. This one you can see here, I'm just closing this up. And there's no rhyme or reason to what I'm doing and which page I'm opening and which page I'm turning into a pocket. I have a couple little flips here that will, flip out and have something on there. It just really kind of depended on the paper, where it was at within the signature, what I had done previously. Here, again, I'm going to create that little kind of thumb notch up at the top. And it was a little off center, which was messing with my mind a little bit. So I just kind of used that hole punch and just came over ever so slightly and kind of re-punched it. It didn't actually punch very well that time, but I'm just going to use my scissors and trim that out. And so it'll make the opening a little bit wider, but it centers it better on the page, and that just makes me feel better. So, and then on this other page, which is, the other half of this paper, I'm just going to go ahead and glue that one closed. Also, like I said, this paper isn't super thick, so having those double layers just really helps have some extra stability within those pages. And then here I'm going to do another top loading one. And you can see I'm kind of, when I'm doing this, I guess it maybe looks a little bit weird, but I am putting the glue pretty like as close to the edge as I possibly can. And then whenever I am running my fingers along there, just making sure that it's not going to like leak out onto the other pages. And then this is another one where I folded that back on itself with the white showing, and I did that specifically because I had one like that in the first signature, and just to kind of keep it cohesive, if that makes sense. So stay tuned for part 3, where we're going to tuck some stuff into these pockets and add some other pockets and embellishments. That will be coming up soon. But if you like this video, I would appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and until next time, bye.